Don't be afraid. I'll barely. You.
Recently, the demo for Twisted Tower, a game by Thomas Brush, that indie developer we all see on the internet and YouTube and lots of other places, has teamed up with 3D Realms to create the Twisted Tower. Fuck, I'm struggling today. Whew. When it comes to indie games, it's very rare that we get something that really... let's try that again. At the recent Steam Next Fest, the first full official demo of Twisted Tower was released, and I really wanted to talk to you guys about it because there's a lot about this game going in I wasn't sure about, and then I left being extremely happy. So, I want to tell you about it. And don't forget, if you like what you see and want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to see more.
Oh God, you sick fuck, let me out of there!
Do you remember Bioshock? There's no real way to get around this, so let's rip the band-aid off early. Have you played Bioshock 1? Originally created in 2007 as a first-person shooter developed by 2K Boston and 2K Australia. At least that's what Wikipedia tells me. All I remember when I was a kid is that I had this game called Bioshock. My cousins didn't have it, my brother didn't know about it, and I was extremely hooked from the get-go. It also made me realize that 2K, at least at the time, was the kind of developer/publisher that I really wanted to keep my eye on for any future games that they made. Bioshock went on to win quite a few awards over time, like the BAFTA, the VGX Awards, Game of the Year, Best Original Soundtrack, and award for the Best Xbox 360 game. I'm from that era. I had an Xbox 360. But I'm not here to talk to you about Bioshock 1 today. What I'm here to talk to you about is a new game called Twisted Tower. And I had to start off with Bioshock 1 because you're immediately going to make the comparisons like I did. Everything beautiful about Bioshock 1 can be found in Twisted Tower. I've seen some reviews and some conversations around Twisted Tower immediately talking about this comparison, and it's quite obvious to see why. The game looks and feels like a Bioshock spiritual successor. I'm going to do my best to make as few Bioshock Twisted Tower comparisons as possible. Twisted Tower does wear its inspirations on its sleeves. In fact, the developer, Thomas Brush, even says that he's inspired by Disneyland and Bioshock in his game. So, cool. Twisted Tower is essentially a universe of a macabre theme park, or at least that's what it feels like when you go in. It's made full of mascots and traps and arena battles and light puzzles. At least that's what I can see so far. There's a lot of elements in the arena battles that remind me of the original Bioshock, although less claustrophobic, which makes sense. Bioshock is under the waves, that's thematically correct. In Twisted Tower, things are a little bit more topsy-turvy. I want to use the word topsy-turvy. I don't think we use that word enough. We're literally able to flip rooms on their heads to create something more interesting. I mentioned traps and puzzles. Now, the game, or at least the demo that I played, didn't really feel like it leaned into this too much, but it was actually quite a nice change. It's not so Bioshock heavy where it doesn't start to experiment with new ideas. The one trap was quite literally obvious the second time I went through it, and there is a part in the game where it does allude to, hey, you're going to be having more than one run with this game, so get used to it. The trap was essentially a trap door. Pretty cliche. I loved it. It was glorious. I noticed it on my second run through. I was like, obviously that's a trap door. Why didn't I see that before? Didn't see it. It was great. You know what I mean? It's quite creative. It's very rare that first-person shooters and games like Twisted Tower even experiment with traps like this outside of Meet Your Maker. And then yes, there were some puzzles, everything from just a normal key hunt to trying to find the right switch. I mean, maybe even calling them puzzles is a strong word. Though it does create this atmosphere that there would be more difficult puzzles later down the line. Don't know yet, maybe. Hold thumbs. Mixing in traps, arena battles, and puzzles, along with these deranged and very unnerving mascots coming through the walls. Or do they teleport? One of the two. I don't know where they're coming from. They're coming through the walls. Really does make for a more unique gameplay experience than I was expecting. And going in, I wasn't expecting much. Quite a while ago, the developer and the publisher released some gameplay footage. It was just the main character shooting in an arena. And a lot of people gave the footage and the developer a hard time because it looked a bit shit. There was quite a lot of lens flare, a lot of misalignment with the blast coming out of the barrel of guns and the gun itself, and blah blah blah. A lot of people gave it quite a hard time, I think myself included. It was a while ago, I don't remember. I apologize if I did. However, in this demo, I felt nothing of the sort. In fact, the gameplay and the action felt very much like Bioshock in that way. Not really a tactical shooter that you'd be used to, or boomer shooter that you'd be used to with Iron Fury or a Medieval or Duke Nukem or Doom. This is very much leans into more chunky run and gun style of shooting and gameplay, where you can't really aim down the sights, you kind of just have to hold on and hope for the best, which I did many times. I mentioned Thomas Brush before, Thomas Brush being the developer of Twisted Tower, known for another game you might have heard of, Neversong, a game that I have not had a chance to play because I heard it really pulls on the heartstrings and I've just not been in a good enough space to play a game like that yet. But Thomas Brush is quite a popular indie developer and indie game YouTuber, giving up a lot of advice to indie developers on how to create their games, develop a game from nothing and a business and run it as a full-time gig. Brush has partnered with 3D Realms, who we all know. At first, again, I think a lot of that early flack of Twisted Tower was because of the recently poor rep 3D Realms has been getting with their games and, you know, not giving over boxes for people that have bought them. Turns out I bought one of those boxes. I completely forgot I did. They reached out to me the other day and like, hey, you bought this Iron Fury box. Do you still want it? And I'm like, yeah, I forgot about that, but thanks for reminding me. Anyway, I am happy to say that I think Thomas Brush has finally gone from making a interesting game like Neversong, which from what I understand is very good, to something very accessible in the form of Twisted Tower. Which is a very difficult way to segue in the story about this game. You're a guy named Tiny, apparently, who comes back from the war, of course you do, only to find that the girl you've fallen in love with, your potential wife-to-be, has decided to leave you for another man. That bitch. But hey, such is life. So we find Tiny drunk, alone, very sad, only for him to receive a ticket to come to Twisted Tower for shenanigans and fun. I'll be honest with you, the first part of this game, where you actually are introduced to the story, is extremely rushed and thrown together, but it's smooshed together quite quickly, which is totally fine. That's what a demo is there for. It's not meant to really spend way too much time on the introduction of the story. It wants to get you into the game, but with just enough context. I think it does that very well here. I was given just enough story right now, off the top of my head, that's what I remember about it, to know what I'm doing here, why am I at Twisted Tower, and why it should matter. As we get a little further into the game, we meet our lead antagonist, Mr. Twister, the puppet master himself. He reminds me quite a lot of Andrew Ryan from Bioshock, with a lot more Joker-esque approach to it. I like him. He makes for a very interesting character. He talks a lot, but he talks in rhymes as well. He explains a lot of things. Eventually you get to a point where, oh no, the love of our life has been kidnapped and we now need to save her by getting to the top of the Twisted Tower and save the day. Pretty straightforward story and I like it. Though, having said that, you get the energy throughout your gameplay that this is just the tip of the iceberg of this narrative.
If you reach the top, through trial and fight, you shall win. Sweet Charlotte Wright!
For example, as you go through each arena, you start to feel that every NPC you meet and that you engage with and talk to is kinda there as an employee almost like you are in Westworld and this is an experience that normal people would have jumped in and paid for. That and all the other elements within the world start to feel like this is a fantastical wonderland almost, that you've been thrust into a game show, and this is just a small part of it. I think saving the love of your life, whose name now escapes me now that I think about it, is just one part of this larger, more detailed story. Or at least I hope so. I may have too higher expectations here, remembering the story of Bioshock and the twists therein. It would be a shame if a game named Twisted Tower didn't at least have one or two of those.
Brother,
Speaking of a memorable story and design aesthetic, everything is based in the 1950s, which is a genre and era that I really enjoy. I think a lot of people do these days. I mean, what do we have the other day? Fallen Aces as well. Very cool genre to dig into. Now we just need Sky Captain and the world of tomorrow, and I'll be a much happier guy. Anyway, I digress. Just like in Bioshock, I will keep saying it, oh my gosh, I'm sorry about that. We do get access to a lot of 50s orientated weapons, like the Tommy gun, one of my favorites. But we also get a twist on the traditional revolver. I think it's called the rubber band revolver. I can't remember. It's the first real weapon you get in the game, the gun. first real gun you get in the game, because the first weapon you get is a mallet. The mallet is something you pick up straight away, and I'll be honest with you, this is your go-to beat-em-up weapon, but also a utility item, helping you smash pumpkins and boxes, like I said, but also a really great fallback weapon when those mascots get a little too touchy. Eventually, you're able to go to an NPC later in the game where you can upgrade your weapons, and I love this touch. I don't think enough games do it these days. I love to upgrade weapons. So you go to this random NPC over here that you're seeing on the screen now, and you upgrade your weapons. In this case, you can upgrade the damage, capacity, and to a secondary fire, where in the case of the pistol, you can shoot several weapons. In the case of the Tommy gun, I don't remember because I didn't get it, but in the case of the mallet, you're able to do a really cool, powerful wind-up attack. All of these is great stuff. I love to customize my weapons. I do wish, though, that we got to see a little bit more interesting changes on the sprites of the weapons once we upgraded them, similar to Bioshock. Yes, I know, but it was a great thing that I liked about that game. I'd love to see it here too. Not a lot of games do that these days. But hey, if that's not what you're going for, you know, not the end of the world. I just think it's a nice touch. Maybe it did and I didn't see it. Why don't you go and play the game? Tell me in the comments. Speaking of upgrades, when upgrading your weapons, you'll use a currency called tickets, obviously. Welcome to Wonderland. Tickets can be found throughout the game. Like I said earlier, you can break them open from pumpkins or boxes and find them pretty much everywhere. They're actually everywhere. I don't think the game needs to do more than that, frankly. It's an old tried and true method of upgrading your weapons. Don't need to invent the reel here. Go for it. I love it, no comments. An extension of the upgrade shop, though, are these strange additional powers that you get. Now, these are not plasmids or anything from Bioshock, and they're not really extra pieces of equipment, or they kind of are. Something like the harpoon gun, which is not a gun, a weapon that you would use. It's a secondary item that you use as like gear. The harpoon, for one, lets you traverse different parts of the map, which is a pretty neat thing. But you start to feel that secondary gear items like this have the potential to open up more spaces within the map or a room that you're in. For one, you can traverse up to different levels in this one room right here. Another, there's a whole section blocked off with an X where you're even told this will be opened up later when we get more abilities or unlock new things. And I love this. This is the kind of elements that I like to see. It makes me feel like there was almost an idea once upon a time to have Twisted Tower be a roguelike where you would die, come back and try again into different areas. Maybe it was, but this is a nice twist on the formula where we get new upgrades and we can go back and find new locations within old arenas. That's a nice twist on the formula. Twist, get it? Which brings me to the combat, of course, why we are all here. Now, unlike Prey, this combat is very, very clunky. I say clunky, I don't mean bad, I mean you just feel like a guy with a gun with no aiming. It's not to say you don't feel powerful, you definitely do. Whether it's the mallet, the Tommy gun, or the revolver, the potential to have a shotgun at some stage, couldn't find that one, but very cool stuff. Every weapon does feel powerful, it does feel strong, and I think they've done a great job, because that gameplay we saw on Twitter that one time has nothing on the actual gameplay itself. Roll the clip. Also, can I just say, side note, that I really appreciate the gore in this game. When you kill a guy, yes, it goes gory and goes, but there's also some confetti. I don't know why. Maybe it's my monkey brain, but it feels good to see all the bleh and that it's that stuff. Overall, my friends, I was pleasantly surprised by Twisted Tower, really and truly. I was just not expecting this. I was not expecting to be drawn into this game the way I did, and I could see the ending of this demo coming, but I was delighted just the same. And if you haven't played the demo yet, please go and check it out. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe it's an IMSM. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Maybe it's a boomer shooter. It's not. Who knows? But I think it's going to be fun. There's no release date yet, but if we trust in 3D Realms, I'm sure we'll have a full game in the next 10 years. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have restarted my Patreon. If you'd like to go and join me over there for a few dollars a month, you can support what I do, as well as my creative endeavors. I intend to start doing more art on the channel, and if you sign up to my Patreon, you get a free podcast every week, the Hyacsho Cast, where I talk to you beautiful people, and we talk a little bit about gaming, content, art, life, the universe, and everything in it. I also just wanted to take a second to thank my Patreon and YouTube channel members. So thank you very much to Blogsy Malone, Osh, and Andrew Michael. A big shout out to the free members over here on Patreon. Thank you to The Nth Review, Immorpha, Candace, and Evil Troy. Thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate your support. Unfortunately, YouTube has paused my membership thing because of some weird technical problem. Don't really know what the issue is, but big shout out to all of my YouTube channel members too. I'll sort that out very soon, I hope, and thank you so much again for your support. But links for all of that are in the description. Until next time, everyone, please take care. Repente. Cheers. Everything has changed in this room. I have to change the lighting. The lighting is not in the right way. The camera is not in the right... I mean, it could be in the right location. We'll find out. Everything feels weird. The camera should be here. The camera should be here. And the microphone should be here. I think that's actually good. Actually, I think that would work. Goddamn.